What do football and Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap have in common?
I don't know.
Both never came home.
Oh. Scent in Catalan, French, and Esperanto. Cento in Italian. Cant in Welsh. The boiling point of water. The Roman numeral is C. It's the natural number following 99 and preceding 101. In medieval context, it may be described as the short hundred or 5 score in order to differentiate the English and Germanic use of hundred to describe the long hundred of 6 score or 120. We're talking about 100. If a person who lives to be 100 is called a centenarian, how then do you mark a century partnership in the land of pod? A couple of cenopods? A couple of pod centurions? How about we just stick with Luke Gledall and Richard Miller? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host is Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good. I'm really good. Thank you for such a lovely kind of Doughboysian intro that you went into there. I did enjoy that very, very much. So as part of kind of some of the festivities and I'm kind of reaching into my Luke's bag of tricks here, I actually went ahead, Rich, and decided to, on this blowout occasion, kind of make up for some of the intros that you've given me by providing and doing a number of ones for yourself.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
So, welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Luke Gledall, and joining me as ever is, we've got 99 problems, but a rich ain't one, as we have Richard Miller. Someone call Elton John, as the rich is back, it's Richard Miller. The man who depresses Wednesdayite Kendrick Lamar, he'll make you also say, Rich don't kill my vibe, it's Richard Miller. And once again, thanks to Wednesday, his heart is in the basement and his weekend is at an all-time low. It's Queen Rich, Richard Miller. And finally, and now the man who motivated the Wednesday players on our training ground experience in 2011 with a quote, "You want a Maserati and a hot body, you've got to work, Rich." That's right. And also, like Brittany, is also stuck in a conservative ship from Gravy Industries. It's Richard Miller.
Oh, tremendous.
And there you go. That's all I've got for you today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, our 100th episode, Luke. It's you know, they said it could never happen, and we've really shown them. We have stuffed it up in with quite the aplomb. I mean, a touch of Doughboys with my intro. I have to say, not fit to lace Weiger's boots, really, but I gave it a go, and I'm glad you appreciate it. I've got my own little surprise, so I will play this for you. It might be better to sort of tag it on the end for folks to hear a bit clearer. But we'll. But anyway, I've done a little song. It's a very little song, and it took me too many takes. When I wake up and I know it's Saturday, I'm gonna watch the match and talk it out with Luke. When I announce who my co-host's gonna be, no matter what nonsense I say, it's always Luke. When we get beat, it happens almost every week, I'm gonna feel better once I wallow with Luke. And if we ever manage to get a spawny win, I'll wring every bit of joy from it with Luke. And we have made 100 pods, and I would make 100 more, just to be the man who made 200 pods with my friend Luke Gledall. Different gravy, different gravy, different gravy, different gravy. 100 down and boost to 100 more. Different gravy, different gravy, different gravy, different gravy. It's 100 down, here's to 100 more. That might have to do.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I'm gonna put it inserts in the full quality. I don't know if I managed to stifle my laughs, but I can probably dub that mildly dub it low in the mix. And I'll do the editing for this. And Rich, I have a surprise for you. So if you check your WhatsApp, you'll see a little something.
Oh, nice.
Do you want to play that?
Yeah, it's my fantastic internet is catching up, but here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Hi Luke, hi David. I'd like to wish you all the best for your 100th episode of your podcast, Different Gravy. Great memories I had at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously some not so great. My penalty miss against the arch enemy, United. Luckily, Watto come up with the winner, so we still beat them live on Sky. Loads of great memories with great atmosphere. Fans were amazing. And hopefully one day, who knows, might be back in some capacity. I'm currently under 23's coach at West Bromwich Albion, so who knows? Watch this space.
So, a few notes here. So, basically, this is really interesting. So, that's Dion Burton for Different Gravy. Someone who I can't really remember what he sounds like. I don't think he ever really did much interviews at Wednesday. And also someone who is either hasn't read the request properly, or he's so kind of in tune and he knows you so well, Rich, that he knows that your middle name is David. So he referred to you as David during the process. So I don't quite know where that comes from. Also, a lot of interesting things to kind of pick over here. I mean, it's great to have Dion Burton on in such a small capacity, and I like that format. I think I'd like to do that. I think I'd never like to talk to football players in real life, as we can probably get onto a bit later in the podcast. There's a little bit of Freddie foreshadowing there. His best memory of being at Wednesday was missing a penalty against Sheffield United. I completely forgot. I'd actually wiped that from my memory. I remembered, I had to actually, in preparation for this, go back and watch that game. That was the home win against the Pigs in the double year, in the Derby double year.
Yes.
That was the 1-0, the Steve Watson lift over Paddy Kenny.
Yeah.
He missed a penalty. I'm like, yes, he did.
Wow. I don't remember that either.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the second half. I think he had a James O'Connor was felled in the box, I believe, and upstepped Dion Burton in one of his. Because I wanted to ask him, because I thought he would come out with that rich vein of form when he joined. Or
that game against Norwich, he absolutely just he ran the show. It was tremendous. That that was the game where we sort of started in relegation trouble, and finished 12th or something stupid. It was really weird. Mm-hmm. You look at the table afterwards and why on earth were we worried? But that's it's very sweet. He might come back in some capacity as well.
I don't know. I will say though,
he's looking well, I have to say.
He looks very, very fine fettle, Yeah. But he always looked like a man. I think I know his Wikipedia page is because you always have that weird world with Wikipedia pictures that there has to be kind of public domain. There can't be anything that's actually given or taken by a club photographer or anything like this. And there's a shot with him with his shirt off, and he's looking absolutely jacked. And I think that was probably about the time he was probably kind of early 30s, but he's always looked in great shape. And the funny thing I was saying was I'd love it if he came back in some capacity at the club. But he's saying, well, I'm under 23 coach at West Brom, and I'm like, that's a really good fucking deal, Dion. You've done really well. That's a really good job. Please don't
careful what you wish for.
Please don't leave the academy at West Brom to go work at Wednesday. That's really, really good. So no, it was genuinely, it was really, really nice.
A man that was playing until not that long ago.
No, he's had a very long career, and I think probably if you do it for that long, it probably shows that he's got a lot of love for the game. So
absolutely, not a bad football season as well. He was at Worcester. He played 23 times, got 5 goals. There's still life in the old dog.
Sure, and you've also, while you've brought this up on your phone or your computer, you've also kind of right click and save that image of him looking jacked.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely one for the old bank. Absolutely.
I don't know. I also in the request said, Rich and I remember you being the talismanic player who could take it down for, up front. I don't know if he maybe took offense to that, maybe because that was kind of more the latter end of Dion Burton, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Bill probably thinks of himself as a not striker. I'll stop talking. I feel like I'm just
Very effective operator. But thank you so much. What a treat to hear from Dion Burton, as you say, himself.
I'm different gravy.
Exactly. I do. I mean, with the sort of the theme of today's episode is we're going to share some of our favourite Wednesday memories, and it's not one of my absolute favourites, but I do remember having a real struggle that first season back in the Championship under Paul Sturrock, and we signed, getting the late Christmas present of signing him and Tudgay on New Year. They played on New Year's Day. So I think they both had to sign on loan technically to play that day, and it was just night and day from looking like we couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo to really giving that cow's backside a whopping. It was a treat. Yeah, so Luke, the theme of our 100th episode, we decided before we sink our teeth into current Wednesday and all that's included there, we wanted to look back at some of our favourite Sheffield Wednesday memories, and we also requested some input from listeners, which we've been nice enough to have a few responses there, and we've picked out a couple to focus on that are particularly nice. And so first off, we've got Paul, who's contributed previously, and he says that I'm dating myself, but my memory stretches back to my time as a young boy in Sheffield during the 1966 FA Cup run. I still remember sitting in my mother's childhood home in Grantham, home of more than one Iron Lady based on my personal experience. Very good. Watching a rebroadcast of the FA Cup semi-final with my dad. I vaguely remember a 2-0 result with my dad giving me a heads up just before each goal. My dad was a season ticket holder, and I can still see the joy on his face as he headed off to Wembley a few weeks later with his scarf and wooden clacker. I don't even recall watching the game, but the result has been imprinted on my mind to this day. We take defeat so much more personally at a young age, and I was devastated by the loss to Everton. I recently found a highlight reel of the game on YouTube, which I tried to watch with my now 84-year-old dad. He watched the first 2 Wednesday goals. He muttered something about key defensive injury and then told me to turn it off. I know how it ends, he said in disgust. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think it's interesting because sometimes, personally, one of my favorite memories is of a semi-final, and you don't necessarily remember the final. And it's funny how those things happen. I think we naturally kind of airbrush some of the bits out, particularly when we have such good, strong memories. You can look back and focus on those good bits and pieces, and almost in isolation. So yeah, that's very nice. Painting a pretty strong picture of the age as well, with the scarf and the wooden clacker as well.
I love the line about going off to Wembley with his scarf and wooden clacker. That really paints a picture, but also maybe I like to kind of weirdly think about it like someone with a stick and bindle, but that's all that he owns. That's all that he needed to get to Wembley.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't chat to my dad, but my dad has some kind of strong memories around the '66 FA Cup final. So
yeah, sort of formative. I think. Imagine if you're of a certain age, that would be probably sets a more realistic tone than the one that you and I had in our early days. To be honest.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
A bit good, but a bit of a real hefty dose of disappointment. Whereas, yeah, Well, yeah, we there was cup finals as well for those of us who came of age in the 90s. So the other we've got a really lovely long email from Chris as well, and he apologizes for it, his email having turned into War and Peace, which is rather good. It's not that long. It's acceptable. I think.
I think we also say that from the very much provision and guidance that this is probably going to be quite a long episode. And we're kind of very much a long-form Sheffield Wednesday podcast, aren't we, really?
Very much so, yes.
As we are on the 100th episode, let us look back and remind ourselves, Rich, of probably just under 2 years ago, like one of the early episodes of the 1920 season, Rich and I did a transfer special, and we proclaimed early on that this will probably be our shortest episode. And then that kind of holds the record for the longest at about a whopping 2 hours 40.
It's a wonder anybody stuck with us, really.
I agree. I definitely agree. I'm sure Joe Rogan would listen to it and find it very boring because, even though we're at a similar length to his podcast, we didn't go on to talk about, how scary nature is and taking DMT.
Yes. And just what a big burly gorilla would do if it got hold of you. In slightly scared tones, but definitely quite turned on tones as well.
Oh, Jamie, pull up the clip.
Jamie, pull up the clip. So Chris's approach is to flag up the some obvious suggestions. We won't go into those, but to then try and pick some more obscure off the beaten track options himself. So he runs through when we used to regularly beat Man United in the league at Hillsborough in the 90s. Those were huge games, and Hillsborough was full to capacity, and plenty of Man United fans in amongst the Owls in the stands. That Man United team in the 90s were awesome, with Ince, Giggs, Bruce, Mark Hughes, and the rest of them. So we were the underdogs that always seemed to rise to the occasion and play our very best football to match them. Hursty scored the winner a few times. Hard to believe it now, but we were a bit of a bogey team for them for a few years. That's a nice memory. I also remember I may have layered on, lots of shine and grease paint on this memory. But I seem to remember we would get the odd result against Liverpool as well. And in particular, we sort of figured out McManaman. We sat Peter Atherton on McManaman, and that kind of broke him in a way, because I feel like people did that afterwards. Now this might be
he was a fairly chunky chap, wasn't he, Peter Atherton? So
and McManaman quite a string bean of a man. So it was a good combination. But in my head, that basically he had to go to Madrid because he'd been found out in the UK by Peter Atherton. But that may have been completely made up by my memory, and I don't want to look it up and have my fond memories broken. So the second memory is Burnley away in 2003. We won there 7-2 after we'd already been relegated to Division 3. The most Wednesday thing. We pulled an amazing performance out of absolutely nowhere in front of a sold-out partying away end. It was surreal. Even Haslam, who was basically a weedy Pelupessy, scored. It was a bit like Cardiff this year. An inexplicable, amazing performance, and infuriating that they are so inconsistent. Yeah, a wild result. I do remember that one as well. Very strange. Third was just the memory of Di Canio, the being and person of Paolo Di Canio. What a player. Lots of great memories of his magic for us, his tricks, temperament and goals, and being gutted about the club's mismanagement of the Alcock Arsenal affair, which to me always seemed like a big sliding doors moment for our club. Sliding doors again. There's a lot of sliding doors in this podcast.
We love
Nice
sliding
to revisit
doors.
the theme. And we carried that to its extreme with the candle that
Mike
smells
D
like
sent us.
Stephen Fletcher's gooch.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing that still rankles me to this day is Harry Redknapp indignantly stirring things up on Match of the Day that very night, saying Paolo should be banned, should never kick a ball in English game again, only to then go on and sign him for a measly 1.5 million. And I remember us beating West Ham 3-1 on Paolo's first return to Hillsborough with West Ham in 2000 with Lampard, Ferdinand, Cole, and Ruddock. We were awful that season, but that was one of those days where the old girl was rocking and the fans were the 11th man. Did we have somebody sent off? I don't know. And lifted aside. There's some things that are sort of cusp of my memory, and I do remember Di Canio. I loved Carbone as well. And I probably still have somewhere a program of Carbone challenging for a header with Colin Hendry, which was rather a fun mismatch in terms of the size. It was almost an Atherton McManaman-esque tussle in the mismatch of their frames. It's interesting, isn't it, the Di Canio thing? Because I think that's one of those things that time. The lesson we all take from that now is that the club mismanaged it, but I don't know I don't know how many options the club had. I also got the aspect of Dave Richards.
Yeah, Dave Richards being Pally. Yeah,
his Pally relationship with the Premier League.
But then I think it's also kind of very twinged with the viewpoint about Cantona, right? Like that's kind of seen as the gold standard.
Yeah.
Because you've had someone who's done something. I'd still think it'd be pretty outlandish today. It felt even more outlandish at the time.
Absolutely. But then I suppose there's the figures involved. You know, Alex Ferguson has a stature all his own and a place in the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Which probably let him insulate Cantona in a way that I don't know that there was anybody a strong enough character at Wednesday to do the same sort of thing.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's still gonna make people say, but isn't that the nature of football? Isn't that the nature of football?
Absolutely.
Looking and obviously just peering over the fence at other teams, you know, lush green,
yes.
lawns and being like, why can't we have that, really?
Yeah, that beautiful green bays on the other side.
We're all being like an envious Wilson from Home Improvement, just making our hat and our noses over people's fences. But we're always naturally got to...
Did you feel that Wilson was a jealous figure?
No, he wasn't. This is why I'm saying it's a jealous version, because, I don't know, he seemed like a nice, amiable character actor who only showed the top half of his face. But
do you know that was actually, he had a terrible accident. That was all that was left of him.
It was just the top half of his severed body just wheeled around on an office chair, basically, just wheel him in for the shots and wheel him out again. Yeah. Just to kind of finish off that point, I think everyone just naturally thinks that that's the way to do it. And, that's... I still think it is. But I think...
I also knowing Redknapp, I bet he was saying on he should be banned, he probably was in touch with his agent.
Oh yeah. But that just basically completely wheels out just everything that Harry Redknapp is about, really, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just the complete wheeler-dealer nature of him, right? Which the media applauds, right?
Yeah.
Especially recently that Rich and I have been chatting about, it was last weekend, the McGregor Poirier fights. And it's just everything that is kind of bad and awful about his character is applauded, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what happens in those situations where everyone kind of knows just what people are about and what they do, but people are there for the theatrics and the show. and people just don't seem to fundamentally care. So elements of that with Harry Redknapp and Conor McGregor.
Yeah, they're two very similar characters in many ways.
Yeah.
4 is more of a collection of memories, a type of memories. So on reflection, my best memories of Wednesday are when the atmosphere at Hillsborough has been electric and the fans have lifted the team onto greater things. There were a couple of nights in Carlos's first season that were really special, beating Arsenal and Brighton under the lights. For Arsenal, it felt like we had a team of heroes where there was a real bond between manager, players and fans for the first time since Waddle, Palmer, Nielsen and the rest. We now had Sam, Kieran Lee, Wallace, Westy, Tom Lees, Bannon and the others with the flowing football. The Carlos Had a Dream song being On Our Way. The atmosphere and experience at Hillsborough that night was the best I can remember since the 90s and just as good. So I'm so glad that young fans got to taste of it a night like that. And nights like that got me hooked. Absolutely. That was the most complete Carlos performance, I think, was the Arsenal game. To a point where it almost stifled us. I think clubs watched, when like you've got tactics and plans in place as a manager, I think there's an element of some of it works, some of it doesn't work in the real world. And I think in the Arsenal game, the system just clicked. But seeing the system at 100% let everybody know what the plans were. Whereas if some of the plans don't work, some of the plans do work. It's like, okay, did they mean that to happen? Did they not mean that to happen? But like when the whole machine is whirring in the way that Carlos had that, I'm saying whirring, I want to say purring, that Wednesday machine was purring against Arsenal. And I think it almost showed our hand a little bit to clubs. I think we struggled for a few weeks after that because it's like, okay, so they want to do X, so we'll stop them doing Y. But it was a tremendous evening, and there's just something about night matches. I think there are special occasions at 3:00 on a Saturday, and there's special occasions even on early kickoff sometimes. But there's something beautiful about being in a football ground and going to a football ground on a dark evening. This sort of beacon, this halo of light as you approach and things like that. And you feel just sort of cocooned from the rest of the world. It's a very special feeling, I think, watching a football match in the evening. So having mentioned it previously, the semi-final against Brighton gets pulled out onto its own as even a better atmosphere than the glory days of the 90s. Such an amazing night. The spontaneity of those phones going on, everyone bouncing and singing, just took my breath away. It gave me goosebumps and sent shivers down my spine. Epic. At times when I struggled during lockdown, watching the YouTube videos of that night has helped me. I remembered looking over at Chansiri and thinking, that's it. He's felt this magic. He's addicted like us. He'll want more of this. Yes, more's the pity now, of course. That was an unbelievable moment. And I also think I would put hand in hand with it, not the whole game of the playoff final, because obviously we know what happened. But the fans staying behind and singing at the end, again, is a very special and I think a uniquely Wednesday moment. It's just very sad for me it's very sad we didn't take that feeling and roll with it. We didn't sort of build on that second in Carlos's second season. It's a real sort of sickener. But we're talking about favourite memories, and it just felt that, again, hairs on the back of your neck, shivers down your spine, being part of that crowd singing to these players who were devastated that they hadn't won. But, people saying afterwards the new Wembley had never made a noise like that. We didn't even know it could make a noise like that. That was a very special thing to be part of. And again, over time, we can forget what happened next, in the way that I've sort of forgotten the game itself and just remembered the bit at the end where we were all singing our hearts out. So the final choice from Chris is saying that he loved our music show, which is very nice. We were so pleased with it. We loved the music show as well. I also have the We Are the Owls CD and put it on in the car on the way to Hillsborough for the big games. I've always thought the match walk-on music is important to the experience. Hearing Singing the Blues and Hi Ho Silver Lining on a sunny Saturday at Hillsborough is special. And can't wait to get back to Hillsborough and hear these again. So lovely.
Yeah. Just to pick up on that one, do you remember a period when, the club kind of changed hands and there was some work? I think it was Lee Strafford coming back. Do you remember there was a lull in, I think thanks to maybe the Dave Allen regime or the rudderless kind of who wasn't really there, the absentee chairman.
Yes.
There was a lull with Waterfront not being played.
Yes.
Where it had a period of coming back, and then I remember going to a game early on in Lee Strafford and was there with my dad, and my dad saying, being so taken the fact that they put on Waterfront.
Yeah, it was wasn't it like, it wasn't Let's Get Ready to Rumble, but it was that sort of a song, wasn't it, in between times?
I don't really remember much from that time. I don't. We've talked about Luke's sabbatical. So I can't tell you about the thing that a lot of people are now talk about, which was like, I was there for Russian and Diamonds at Home, which was kind of seen as like some nadir of Wednesday. So who knows? It could get worse. Watch the space, folks.
Oh dear, yeah. That's the match where not that many people attended, but every single one of those people made their own football club. Is that right?
Yes.
So, having gone through a bit of correspondence from listeners, we now have a first for the podcast, an interview with Matt Exton, who's the sort of director, creator of the All Wednesday documentary that we watched as part of the last episode. So we're gonna talk to Matt, and then we'll come back and round things off.
And now we'll get straight into our interview with Matt Exton, director of All Wednesday.
So my first one's really boring, but it's how did the project come about?
I think it came about after, not long after, the playoff final against Hull.
Right.
Obviously, after that match, it was like, I don't know, there was kind of like a mixed feel. I had mixed feelings about it afterwards. Like one part of me, a bit like England, I suppose. Like one part of me was kind of really, really like gutted that we'd done so well, we played so, and I went into that game probably like a lot of people, like overconfident that we were going to do it because of how good we were that season, and then to have lost, it was just kind of like But then like I don't know, like afterwards, a few days after, I was looking at some of the Wednesday groups on Facebook, and there was just so many clips, so many photos, so many clips, people writing their experiences of the day, and kind of like, I thought, it'd be great to take all these kind of like clips and photos and video and kind of make it like put a montage together and show that kind of like, sometimes it's not always about the result, but like what a day people have had. And it's like, I think the main feeling was the fact that everybody was, everybody's a fan. They've all got that one thing in common as a fan, but everybody's got their own journey sort of thing. So everyone's had their own experience of that match, even though we all had the same feeling with the outcome. It was kind of like, I don't know, it sort of felt like there were so many stories about that day. And then I was kind of like thinking about it, and I thought, the problem is it's too late. The bubbles burst, people are off, and it don't really feel like right to kind of do something on just that. But then it was sort of like expanded into, well, maybe there's, we've got so much history that's maybe an idea to actually speak to fans
about, like from up through all ages of various kind of like times and memories, and put it all together as one thing basically. And I think it mainly came due to a bit of a lack of creative spark that I had at the time, because I was in my full-time job, I was doing kind of fairly boring corporate kind of style video stuff, and I wanted to kind of find my spot for why I enjoyed making films and videos and stuff. And I think I just wanted a bit of a personal project to take my mind off of stuff at work, and I just wrote it down as an idea, literally in this book here, and then I just sort of like ended up. I got a little bit drunk one night, and then I sort of like typed up an email to Trevor Braithwaite. I sent it to him, and then I was like, the next day, when you kind of like a little bit sort of like, oh God, what did I do that for? Because then he responded and he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I'm sort of half committed a little bit by then. But I thought, well, maybe
definitely.
Yeah, I thought, well, maybe that's the spark that I needed. Like now I've committed to it. Or I've said that I'm doing it. So like maybe I should just crack on and try and do it and see what happens.
Pressure is a privilege, I keep hearing.
Yeah.
So to pretend I know something about films. So the idea, the sort of beginning of the idea is almost like a Rashomon sort of take on that playoff final, all those different journeys to the same conclusion. That's a really I'd say I think that does, you do get that feel, and it's nice that we focus on different moments as well, because as you say, unfortunately it was all too brief a sunny moment for the club around that season and the season that followed. So I've got another sort of question, and we will go sort of back and forth, myself and Luke. But my interest was, how did you choose which fans you would talk to, and was there an application process? Did you hold auditions, or did you have people in mind from the off?
No, it was pretty tough, because basically, the way that I thought about doing it was that. I already had in mind, a couple of people that I was going to speak to, but I think at first I just thought, right, go-to guy, tango, Yes. So my first thought was like, what I need to do is I need to try and get people to write stories in. I need to get people to like submit, experiences and memories and stories and stuff like that, and I didn't have enough of a profile to be able to do that, myself, and I think that's one of the good things about having the club involved, was the fact that, the club, they can use their accounts, their social media to put something out that will get a response from fans. So, so I sort of said, right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by making a trailer, like a teaser trailer thing, sort of thing of what I'm going to do. And I started out by just kind of like, I got permission to go and film the ground, and I just went and filmed some shots of the ground and stuff like that. And then I sort of pushed it a bit further and blagged to go to a game and film pitch side at the game.
Yeah.
So I filmed some stuff there, and then it just sort of like, the thing is, like, a lot of it just kind of like unraveled like naturally, which was quite lucky. And basically, like, the game that I went to go and film was the game against Fulham, last game of the season, where a round of applause for Ryan Goodinson's dad passed away at the Derby game. And just being there at that moment and filming it, I felt quite emotional from it. Like, I was kind of like, stood there filming the fans, and like goosebumps were tingling, because I'd known about it, sort of thing. And then it was at that point there that I thought, well, do you know what? Like, it goes to show that football's a lot more than just kind of, memories with you going with your dad, or memories of games or whatever, or going to the, sometimes it's a lot deeper, and it's about, the personal relationships that you have with with your family and your friends, and doing those memories together through channeling it through the club, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was kind of like from there, I sort of basically, I reached out to Ryan and I said, listen, I've got this footage from the cop because I was filming this stuff for this documentary. Do you, here it is if you want it as a bit of a keepsake. And he was like really appreciative. And I just opened up a bit of a dialogue with him on there. And I said, listen, I'm making this film, or I'm trying to. And I'd be interested in speaking to you if you'd like to talk on camera about your dad. I says you don't have to go into any of the details about what happened, because I understand it's going to be quite raw, and feel free to just tell me to fuck off, basically. Like if you want to, I'd be very much like willing to speak to you. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. So I kind of got like Ryan through that way, really, and I'd already reached out to Tango, and he'd said yeah. And then when I went and filmed Tango, he says, "Oh, I've got a mate who's this big American fella." I was like, "All right, well, I'm filming you. I might as well film him." So I filmed him, and then I just started getting people like that. And then I reached out to Pete McKee as well, just purely because I thought, I know he's a popular figure. I know he's a big Wednesday fan. I know he's well known, and it might be something in the video that'll pull, fan engagement.
Good call.
So I got those 4 basically to start with, and then I made this trailer, and then the club put it out, and then from there I basically asked for people to write in submissions. I'd set up an email address.
Okay.
And then people wrote. I'd made a form on Google Forms where it was like, what games are these? Which of these games have you been to? What memories do you have? Stuff like that.
Nice.
And then people then started, like, from when the trailer went out, people started writing in stuff. I think I must have got about maybe 400 people writing. It was a nightmare. It was like that, and it was
20
just like,
or something would have been nice, wouldn't it? You could work through that and pick the best ones. That's so many. That's too many.
So many that I had to read through, and it just went on for ages and ages and ages. And to be honest with you, I think there's a couple in there that I feel like I probably, I picked and I maybe shouldn't have picked, and then there was like others that I wish I had picked after speaking to them afterwards. But it's just so hard to do on paper.
Yeah,
so hard to judge it on paper.
I think it felt like a really natural mix watching that. I think it felt like every generation was very clearly sort of defined, and I pretty quickly got like this person's representing this era, this person's. So I think, although it sounds like quite an arduous task, I think you did do a great job on that front. But did you develop any sort of arbitrary ways of dismissing some of the? I just know, like, we've been in a position like in work with job applications, and when you have too many, you just end up like, do you know anyone with a Yahoo email address? They're out. Like you just end up with something to thin the herd, because you just cannot simply read them all in detail.
I tried to do it as fair as I could. I wanted a genuine mix of, like, because there's such a range of types of fan. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Right? And I did want a decent kind of mix, and as I was kind of like reading some of them, it's maybe the way it was written. Or maybe the fact that it was like one-word answers to things. Yeah. There's not enough detail there, but I was basically going off. I was looking for mainly like 2 or 3 things, really. I was looking for somebody who got, a really interesting story that wasn't just, I went to the match with, because a lot of people have had that same experience. Went with my dad and stuff like that, and. I was looking for something that stood out as a real kind of like classic Wednesday story, and that's how I ended up coming about. The 2 lads who got stuck in Exeter.
Yeah, that's great.
The chap who Kate crashed the 91. I thought, oh, these are brilliant.
So great.
Then I was also looking for, you know, to see. I'd done like a list of games to see which ones they've been to.
Okay.
So I could say, right, well, they've been to that game, and then they can talk about that game, and then I can intersperse their interview when it's talking about that game and stuff. But then basically, like, I'd made like a short list of like definites, maybes, and no's. And then I kind of started ringing the people, and I basically had a chat with them on the phone for like, you know, a good 20 minutes on the phone just to gauge kind of what they were like on the phone, and if I thought they were going to be good to interview. And, you know, most of the people I spoke to, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, well, we'll film you and we'll see how it goes. And then there was a few on the maybe, but eventually I just kind of like, you know, it could be 3 hours long. You know? But like, I just ran out of time, and I just, you know, I had to cut it off somewhere as well.
Just a question around that, Matt. I always kind of wonder about this, especially because I'm sure you probably have your kind of darlings and things that you really, really liked from it. So was there anything you wanted to include in the final cut that you just had to cut out?
Yeah, there was on the DVD. There's an extra about I don't know if you've seen it on the DVD. The story of the fisherman on the bank.
Yeah.
Like that when Joanna, it was Joanna. She wrote in, and she put that as her memory, and I thought that was like that straight away. I'm putting that in, and then by the time I'd kind of like finished the edit, I was like, there's really nowhere I can sort of sneak this in. It's not really like something that I could, you know. So I was quite. I thought, well, maybe I can do that as its own little separate piece as a extra scene. And so, you know, I really did like. I remember reading that and thinking, oh, that's fantastic. But then, like, when I interviewed her, she spoke with like such kind of like enthusiasm and passion about that Brentford game, and she worked really well for that section. So I mean, that story particularly, you know, really got me. The Jack Payne story, I was like, I was very much, you know, like excited about, because I knew that was going to pull on the heartstrings a little bit, you know, because it had a nice ending, you know, but also a bit of trauma to it. You know, it's always going to kind of have people who've been through similar scenarios. So there's that one, and then I think the 91 story about gate crashing the final, the celebratory final, that kind of got me quite giddy as well. I think
that's great.
I also want to ask you, Matt, for yourself, what was the best moment for yourself of filming it?
I think it was actually editing, like the editing part, where the best moment, believe it or not, came from editing the story about the two chaps who died in the car crash.
Right.
Because basically, I'd filmed a lot of it, and then I was kind of like, I have no idea how I'm going to edit this. I have no idea how I'm going to structure this at all. And then, you know, I'd filmed Ryan, and I'd done Ryan's bits, and I'd filmed, and I got Jack's stuff, and I was looking at that. And then I think I'd reached out to like Scott, and I said to him like, are you free? Would you mind talking to me about this? And he was like, yeah. And then I'd done the interview with him in Hillsborough Park.
Okay.
And then straight after I'd filmed that, I came back because I was desperate to see how it came across. And I started editing that, and I put some sort of like, you know, music over the top of it. I'm just going to close my window. I've got builders outside. So.
Oh, right.
So yeah, you know, I'd started editing that, and I basically just like almost kind of broke down. Like, I had a bit of a moment where I just kind of broke down into tears just listening to it, and it was like I've never been affected. Like, I've done a lot of editing, like where I've edited emotional content, and it's never really affected me. It's just been part of my job, and I've been able to just be like, yeah, fine, yeah, you know. And this one, for some reason, I think it was because seeing the pain in him now, still all these years later, and also I felt it at the time, and it's just one of those things that you always remember. certain ones you pull out that you always remember, and I've always remembered that. And but like the thing is, that was kind of like the inspiration for me to then like sit down and really like, I knew what I was doing after that. As soon as I'd edited that part, for some reason, the rest of it all, I just kind of thought, right, I know what I'm doing now. I'm going to have this section, this section, this section, and this section. And then I started making notes of, right, that's going in there, that's going in there, and I just kind of started doing it like that, basically. So that, I think, I was quite lost in how I was going to make it up to that point. And then that was sort of like, I just knew after that it was kind of like I say, the inspiration for how it was going to come about.
Great. So yes, mountains of material, and then trying to find a path through it. Oh yeah. I've got you down for one more, Luke. Question.
Oh, okay. What was your kind of biggest personal surprise of making the film?
I think the reaction. I think like the outcome of it and the reaction, and like how from where it started to where it ended. To be honest with you, because it started with literally me just coming up with this thing and then emailing the club, and I didn't know what it was going to be, and I didn't know like where it was going to end up, and I didn't know kind of what platform it was going to sit on.
Yeah.
And it was a new experience for me because I'd never done any kind of producing before. I've done directing and editing and filming, but I've never done any producing where you have to be in charge of budgets and kind of figure out, how much things are going to cost.
Yeah.
So seeing it just kind of like go from an idea through to a screening at the cinema, and then a DVD that then sold out, and then it ended up with I think 17,000 made for charity.
Wow.
Through the sales of the DVD, all profits went to charity. The club wanted to do a thing where they split it 50-50, where they get 50% and I get 50%. And I said, well, I'm not bothered about. I'm wanting more to do it because I'm wanting to keep the cost down at this. I know what I said in the meeting. I said, I know what you're like. You'll stick this on for 30 quid, and they'll be like, it'll just stay on the shelf, and no one will want it. Put it in for a tenner. Like, it's affordable. It's a stocking.
It's a great price point. Yeah.
And I said, like, and you can also encourage people to do it by just saying, look, give all profits to charity from it.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about making from it. And the club were like, okay, then we'll match that. It's like, all right, thanks,
right.
Mike.
Okay. yeah. That's nice.
So it ended up making quite like split across 3 or 4 charities, and just to see it kind of go from that to that was it was really, really good and surprising. Yeah.
So you mentioned we've had some messaging back and forth to set up this call. You mentioned there was a little bit of pressure from the club around the 150th anniversary. I'm wondering what sort of shape did that take, and were we ever close to an audio-visual cakeball, which was the other way that the 150th anniversary was celebrated?
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, luckily they didn't pitch too many ideas to me, which there's always that danger, isn't there? When you've seen cakeball, it's kind of like, are they going to try and push some weird promotional kind of tool into this and like, roll it out on a big circular screen? I don't know, but. No, I think the pressure mainly came from they wanted to do it for the birthday of the club, which was the 151st. And to be fair, I'd not reached out to them until the actual, I don't know if it was the season of the 150th anniversary. So it was too late to do anything, to have it done and produced for then.
Yeah.
But they kind of wanted to use this as a way to round off the celebrations of the 150th season. I think it was a way to try and save the embarrassment of the 150th season celebrations, to be honest with you, because there were some very bad decisions made.
Yeah.
But the pressure was like put in place to try and have it done for, I think it was the end of August. and I think I'd booked 2 weeks off work to film it, and then I filmed it, and then I had to go and film other little bits in between, and then I was basically editing it throughout the entirety of August. You know, in my spare time, and I was kind of like, oh, God, I've got to try and get this done. And I had to do it in a format for cinema, which I've never done before.
Right, okay.
I was kind of like rendering it out at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm just sat watching the bar because I'm just expecting, it's going to come up with a message saying you failed or it's failed. And, you know, I thought that's going to be my luck. Like, so yeah, the deadline was the real. And do you know what? To be fair as well, the club were they weren't very helpful.
Right.
They tried to be, but they weren't very helpful. Like trying to get any kind of like imagery to use from them was just not happening, because I don't know if you've like how much you spoke to the club photographer. I think it's Steve Ellis. Just never returned.
Basically, we do have a story.
Never returned my calls, never returned my emails, basically hung up whenever I rang. It's just like, you know, and trying to, like, the pressure was trying to get like materials to show for games that people were speaking about that were like, I knew was going to be copyrighted to the club. I was a bit sensitive about copyright and where it was going to go, and there was a point where there was, you know, there's a few things in there that probably ain't copyrighted, and it's like, I'm just going to have to wing it and hope that I get away with it. So, but like,
I'm sure you recall from the episode, Matt, but I did think the music you used was impeccably close to what the actual thing was.
I think that would probably, like, I think if they were to push that, they would quite easily have a lawsuit.
Right. Yeah.
But, like, there's a couple of those that, like, I mean, the soundtrack for the Boxing Day one, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, because it sounds almost like it's been plucked from some kind of stock audio site, and it's just jangly kind of like Christmas themed, but like corporate video music, and it's like, you know, when I listen back to that, I think, oh, that sounds dreadful. But like, you know, at the time, I was running out of time to get it like produced to release it before Christmas, and I just had to, because I tried on a lot of occasions to get the original music. You know, I tried to get was it Boney M who did that? I was in touch with Boney M's people to try and use that. They wouldn't let me use it. They didn't even quote. They just said, "No, you're not using that." So, right, okay. Like, okay, I'll rip it off then. So, you know, so it got to a point where I just kind of like, I just thought I had to sort of say, right, well, that I can argue against, that I can argue against, that I'm probably, you know, if I get pulled up on it, I ain't got a leg to stand on whatsoever, but I'll just like try and claim innocence and blame the club. And that's what Trevor said to me. He says, like, you know, if anything goes tits up, you can always blame us. I said, yeah, can I have that in writing, please, Trev? Because all I've got for that is your word for that.
So I think Rich and I are a little bit heartbroken that you weren't kind of harmonious with the 150th celebration. So I take it you didn't get a mound of cakeball then.
No,
a fistful of cakeball.
Fistful of cakeball. I just tried to come in and take a big fist out.
My little kind of takeaway. There you go. Thanks for all your hard work.
Do you think, you know, like people freeze a slice of wedding cake? Do you think anybody's got cakeball in their freezer?
I'd like to think, you know, that, you know, some of the collectors might have. I don't know. There's not much to look at, was it? You know? No.
Oh dear, no. It wasn't. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. This is part of our 100th episode, and it's themed around people sharing their favourite Wednesday memories. And I was wondering if you've got a particular memory you'd like to share with us to add into the show.
Yeah, so Cardiff Cardiff match, obviously. Sorry, not Cardiff. It was at Cardiff, Millennium
Yes.
State playoff final against Hartlepool in Cardiff. Was, you know, I think a lot of people have the big games as a memory for many reasons. But that one particularly stood out for me because it was kind of like the time when you knew, or it's the part in your fanhood, if you like, where your kind of dad realizes that, you know, you've got mates, and it's sort of like, I've done my job of raising him to be, you know, to endure a life of misery as a Wednesday fan, and now I can step back and leave him to go with his mates. So for the game, for the playoff semi-final against Brentford, I was at university at the time. I was in Leeds, and I was watching that in a pub in Leeds with my housemates who were kind of neutrals, and they were sort of like, right, so you're going to go to the final? I'm like, yeah, I don't know how, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, so, like, are you going to go with, like, your mates? And I was like, and at that point, I'm like, oh, God, you know what? I don't know. Like, so I'd say, yeah, that would be a great out on the booze and like, but then again, I've got this thing in my head about my dad, and like, even though he'd pretend that he didn't want to go, I think like deep down he'd probably, you know, want to go. So I was kind of like, you know, I go to all the home games with my dad still. So, you know, I've got to go with him. So I rang him basically straight after, and I was like, sort of on the phone, saying, yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Can you go get tickets? I think that was at the point where you still had to go to the ticket office for tickets, all online and stuff. So yeah, I think bless him, he went and got them and agreed to come along, and he went and sorted it out and sorted the tickets and sorted the coach out and everything. And so obviously we went down on the coach, and it was just a real like nice kind of like, you know, memory really, because I just remember it was like when you don't really speak much, like, well, we do, we're a close family, but we don't really speak much in terms of like, my dad, it'll always be like me and my mum and my dad and me and my wife. And it was just me and him. And, you know, we were talking about kind of like, you know, matches through the past and kind of just reminiscing a little bit. And it was just a really good day to spend with him.
Yeah.
At the actual game itself, we got in. We were kind of soaking up the atmosphere. Like, we'd had a couple of drinks beforehand, but my dad's not a big drinker, so it was kind of like half a pint for him, and you know, pint for me. And then we got into the ground fairly early, I think, because my dad's one of these, a stickler for getting into ground.
Getting in early,
3 hours before kickoff, just in case.
Yeah.
We weren't quite that. I think we got in like, you know, a good half hour before. We were kind of like do these like I like to say drunken louts. It was sort of like, there were quite a few in the ground that day, and they were mates or brothers or what, but they both got the kids with them, and they were kind of like, you know, up and dancing and partying and singing. And I says to my dad, I says, oh, these two have had a few, haven't they? Like, and then, you know, the game kicks off, and you know, they're quite jovial, and up until half time we're 1-0 up, and then one of them, you know, the booze starts to didn't quite have the stomach like his pal did, and he sort of slumps down in his seat and kind of like sort of like put his head in his hands a little bit, and that was it. That was the last we saw of him. That were it. Resting game. And I was like, I just sort of like I was watching the game, and I was half had an eye on him, like, so like, is he all right? So,
yeah.
But he was just kind of slumped.
Because it was a hot day as well.
Hot day, and, you know, he was... I don't know how anybody slumps in that position in those chairs and passes out for that amount of time without somehow kind of coming round or anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, he kind of like... he got to extra time. We'd just gone 3-2 up. And then he kind of stirred. It's like the reaction for, I think, the cheer or the singing. He kind of woke up. It was like that thing where he just kind of come out of it. And he stood up. And I just remember that. Oh, it says to me, Dad, oh, he's alive, like that. And I'm kind of like listening in. And he turns to his mate and he's like, is it still 1-0? Missed everything. Missed absolutely everything. All the drama. The penalty, sending off, And like, you know, like quite bluntly, I think like quite annoyed, to be honest, his mate just says to him, no, it's extra time, we're 3-2 up, we've had a penalty, they've had a man sent off, and I think you've pissed yourself. It's like, more importantly, you've soiled yourself. So it's just like me and my dad both there. We just turned to each other, just like absolute, like couldn't stop laughing. It was brilliant, and I mean, obviously we're quite jovial about the game as well. And I think that like things funny. It's like 10 times funnier when things are going well.
Yes,
for you. It was just brilliant. And then like, you know, not long after that, Talbot scored. So at least bless him, at least
he got that.
He got that
moment of release.
Like, I just said to him, like, you know, on the coach coming back, I was like, oh, imagine that, go like all season and you go to that and then you just miss most of the games. How is he? Does he care? Is it like, and now I still think to him this day, does he care about it? Is he, you know, or is he like, you know, what a great day that were? I got hammered and so great day.
And he had the game without any of the nerves and trauma. Like the second half was unbearable, and he didn't have to. We were 1-0 up when he went to sleep. We were 3-2 up when he woke up. I mean, perfect. And then he saw Talbot score. Maybe he nailed it.
Maybe that's the way to do it.
For an hour. Miss all the dramatic, scary stuff, and just come back and go, yeah, easy peasy.
Oh man, yeah. But I mean, everybody. I think
soiling yourself. I think that's a pretty low.
Again, I don't
Godless.
think much at all. I think he was like, whatever. Get another fight.
I have got a friend whose last night, he now doesn't drink, and his last night of drinking was we went to a choral concert, and he didn't see the band because he was sort of leading the rest of the audience in their sort of, he was cheerleading, facing backwards the whole way through, and he sort of woke up the next morning, he's like, I don't know that I even looked at the band, and I don't know if they were all like, it's just because you're just pointing out like people who weren't dancing or clapping enough, having been on the beers all day beforehand, and that was him for him. He's like, right, yeah, I'm not going to miss another big occasion. So maybe it was a come to Jesus moment for a
moment of clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for talking to us. It's been really lovely, and we thoroughly enjoyed covering the film in the last episode, and it's been a real treat to talk to you. Do you have anything to plug? We've got an audience that I think last count 5 people bought ball shavers when we were promoting those. So,
well, I ain't got a ball shaver to plug.
No.
No, but I might invest in one now. Now you.
It's gravy balls on manscaped.com.
Right. I'll have a look through it. But no, what I was going to say to you, again, it's not really a plug because it's nothing to do with me. But have you seen that illustrated little Wednesday book by Tim Bird?
I don't think I know that. No.
This is what I was going to talk to you about, because obviously you've done an episode on Alex Miller's book, which I've got. I haven't read it yet, but I've got.
Yes.
And I wondered if these guys have seen this as well. And this is a guy. He's a Wednesday fan. He's an illustrator, and I think he lives in London. It's called Tim Bird, and he's recently done this little book, and it's only a £5. I think it's a £5 including delivery. I think UK. Sorry, Luke. You know, I don't know. Probably a £5, and then a couple of £100 to ship it out to you.
Exactly.
But like so it's this little. It's almost like a fanzine sort of thing, and it's just
wow,
really like easy to read. It's like really quick. It's all pictures, and then on the back he's got him and his dad there.
Lovely.
And I just think for a £5, it's quite a nice little treat. Like if you look through it, the way that he's done it, so he's kind of got like, there's a good example is this bit here. So it's kind of like, I think in this page here, he's kind of like dreaming about going to the match or something. And then on the next page, it's like his dad says they're going to the match. And then he's actually produced the actual ticket stubs.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's just like, it's a nice little illustration.
Great.
it's talking mainly about, it's mainly through the 90s, but it's talking about kind of his experience of like following the club, and then, you know, when they moved to Leeds or something, like not going to as many games. But it's just like really nicely put together, just like a little just something to read while you kind of like got the spare 5 minutes sort of thing. And I just kind of love seeing like fans, like Wednesday fans or whatever, or fans of other clubs doing their own little things and kind of putting them out there. Because, like, you know, it's supportive of kind of like, you know, that creative sort of indie kind of businesses, but also like, you know, you get a lot more kind of variation than this, you know, the usual stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Oh, that's really great. Thank you. We'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. But I'm definitely going to be purchasing. That looks really fantastic, and actually looks like a length of book that I will struggle to not to finish in time for the podcast, which is what happened.
It's quite short. I mean, I read it in a night. It took me about like 10-15 minutes because it's literally just pictures. It's great. Yeah.
Well, it looks good. I like the ratio to picture to words. Looks out on my level.
Alex Miller's I'm basically saving for like, I was like, I can't do this now. I need to do this when I'm on holiday. I need to like go
holiday.
I'm 2 weeks away, lay on my Wednesday towel and just kind of like get something like Carlton Palmer's story, getting stoned before matches or whatever.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. That's
this is awesome.
Thanks, lads. Good luck with the rest of the podcast, and I'll definitely make sure I listen out for them now.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much to Matt for taking part in our first ever interview. Hopefully not too much of a train wreck. But Matt was kind enough to reach out after the previous episode and say how much he'd enjoyed it. So we sort of followed up on that little glimpse to put something to put this together. And also thank you so much to Paul and Chris for their contributions. Really lovely stuff, and putting us in on a fine footing to start on our own memories. So you're going to kick us off, Luke.
Yes, and so this is a little bit interesting because I mean I've done, as a bit of preamble, I've done 3 Wednesday match day memories.
Okay.
My own wee little trilogy, I'm going to say.
Nice.
And then I kind of go into 2 others, which is something else and something very different.
Okay.
So,
interesting.
Yes. So this begins match memory number 1.
Okay.
For me, it has to be something iconic. And also, interestingly, it's probably befitted the fact that, depressingly rich, I think I've now seen more Wednesday on television through online mediums than probably Wednesday in the flesh.
Wow.
And that's something really kind of heavy. It probably makes me reevaluate my life and reevaluate the choices I've made, despite the fact I'm very, very happy here in my new country and home of Canada. And probably what a bizarre but incredible memory I think that it was for me to watch the Wednesday beanbag for Wednesday's Derby double over the Pigs.
Of course.
Interesting that Dion Burton left us a message where he mentioned his part, a part I actually managed to wipe from memory, as I mentioned before, in the 1-0 victory over the Pigs. And I must say that's a sad admission from this list. Seeing Steve Watson's majestic lift of the bumbling Chuckle Brother Thugface double act as Paddy Kenny and Chris Morgan is something else. But I think having the joy of watching a historic victory at the Stane on a massive telly that still felt like watching it on a real video postage stamp sized video on the internet circa late 90s was something else. The fact that this was being done, we could watch it with around 9,000 Wednesdayites, if my memory on this still works, just made the whole experience otherworldly. It felt like some weird triumph of technology to have a feed directly to the gigantic Richer Sounds rental telly. I still imagined it came through a special fiber optic pipe pimped by the people at Yorkshire Cable, even though they were probably defunct at the time. It still felt from another ageless timeline when Mickey Gray casually knocked it across the box and Tommy Spur casually lashed it past Kenny. I don't think I've disbelieved my own vision more, and I'm yet to take any hallucinogenic drugs. And yet that wasn't the most outlandish thing I saw that day. As Marcus Tudgay just hit the ball with a true deft touch, I still watch it back like as a magician's sleight of hand trick, just with his cultured right peg. Just an absolutely wonderful day, and it was nice to kind of be there at Hillsborough. And I remember leaving the stadium like we're still in the euphoric bubble.
Lovely.
Which I imagine was the opposite from the Grunt Fest of the Stain. 2 final things to say. I must have to say I do love a Wednesday kit with blue shorts.
Mm.
And also, even though he's been forgotten to history, Arturo Lupoli is still a lying shit wasp, as that was an own goal and wasn't his goal. Fuck you.
I mean, the other thing that's added to that, it's funny, like memories get added to by, particularly over time, like you watch the YouTube videos and things like to remind yourself, and then that becomes incorporated in your memory. And that Tudgay goal, right alongside it is the United fan that goes to give the big wide, how wide.
Yeah.
Simple, just with his arms out, just as his world just collapses in on itself. Just fantastic. That extra little bit of Schadenfreude seasoning on top of a delicious, delicious pie. Oh, well, I've got a bit of a smorgasbord. So mine are all game related. But sometimes the game is more important because of the situation. So I've got a couple in my back pocket. I'm trying to predict the direction you're going to go in, Luke, and I think I've got a couple in my back pocket that might strike a similar tone. Hopefully, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go really, really obvious off the bat, and maybe you've got this one as well. And
Okay.
Mine are kind of in chronological order, although. Again, memory playing tricks on you. I had the chronological order wrong for a couple of them. But I've got to go for the Waddle game.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Not on my list, I must say.
Okay. Well, just in terms of those early memories that cemented you, it's almost unfair. There was nothing your young mind can do to fight against Hillsborough bouncing just before Christmas, all the special Christmas songs. And the first feels like they've all been invented that day for you. And Chris Waddle scoring 1 but assisting another 3, just putting on an absolute tour de force and being my favourite player ever as well. My favourite player ever in his best game for Wednesday. It has to be the one, and it certainly was just one of those, as I say, one of those memories where everything about it is magical, and in terms of the addiction of being a Sheffield Wednesday fan, this was the free hit that really cemented my status as a Wednesday smackhead forevermore. Interestingly, an own goal in that. Then it started with an own goal, the downpour. But yeah, just as I say, so many memories. Being at the match with my dad, it being before Christmas, walking in a Waddle Wonderland, dreaming of a bright Christmas, etc. Just beautiful, and we always used to listen to "Simply the Best" by Tina Turner when we got back in the car after a win. And I would have a Lucasade in the sort of tinfoil squishy packaging, if you remember those ones.
I don't remember those ones. Oh, I do. They were the kind of like the. Is that the kind of realm of? I was actually telling. I was telling a beautiful lady who I'm possibly in the early throes of something with, possibly touch wood. I was telling her about the Aero milk drinks, the Aero mint drinks.
Oh yeah.
Is that no longer a thing in the UK, or is it still there?
I don't think it is a thing. Not that I know of.
But, people used to adore those milky. So it's like a juice box, isn't it? For want of a North American term. But it was kind of like kind of like a square Tetra Pak foily thing. Was that right?
It was more of like a rectangle of it was squishy. So
It wasn't a Capri Sun type weld, was it?
No, but it was probably closer to a Capri Sun than a bottle.
Welcome back to Different Gravy, your favorite Sheffield Wednesday pass, where we discuss drinks packaging.
It felt really sporty, like this is what you would squeeze into your mouth if you were really.
I remember those. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get one of those in a Mars bar. We'd listen to Tina Turner. It was
doesn't get better, does it?
And
doesn't get any better, does it?
We knew that Santa was on his way. He put the stuff was on the sleigh. He was just waiting to set off. So yeah, that's the waddle game for me. What's next?
Fantastic. I was actually there as well. So in the 90s, my dad actually wrote for the program. He used to do a little bit of. So just as a bit of background, I don't think I've ever mentioned this. I felt like maybe I should have reached out to my dad, because I feel like if I probably got my dad going, he'd probably go on for quite a while. Bless him. About all his Wednesday memories. But he used to write like I think it's called Premierships People or Premiership Points.
Okay.
I remember going around to my dad's, and then my dad would be hacking away on his Apple Mac, bits of, a kind of summary of news. And, interesting that during that time he would go get a bunch of papers and kind of digest, a bunch of this news articles that he would kind of put up for. And, interesting that I'm sure it was kind of seen as content, and there might be people there who probably bought the program and enjoyed it and enjoyed those kind of the few columns my dad did. But it's interesting now that we feel a little bit like this when we talk about news on the podcast, and hilariously we haven't talked about news all summer because we didn't want it because it was too bloody depressing. Funny that at that time that's probably it's probably still a valid kind of term of news of what's kind of going on.
Yeah.
But now everything's so kind of immediate. It's a bit like when you do stuff a bit later, even when we do stuff on the podcast, we're kind of imagining people being like, "Yeah, I already know this."
Yeah.
You don't have a better angle on anything or a better reach for anything. There's no exclusives that drops on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that's sort of fascinating, really, isn't it?
So we got some comp. We used to get some comp tickets. So
nice.
I think I'm going to sat on the cop for that one as well. So I don't remember much of it then. It was a party atmosphere, and
that's
Waddle doing a few deft kind of step overs to send those ruddy cockneys on their backsides. I do remember also my brother, just the sheer delight of my eldest brother Andy when watching that on Match of the Day and just seeing Trevor Brooking just be crestfallen, his beloved West Ham get an absolute shafting from Wednesday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think with Waddle, being someone that's never been particularly athletically gifted, it's the fact he played the game almost at a walking pace most of the time.
Yeah,
and it did. He gets called a wizard, but it was like a magic trick in a way, because so many wingers, it's just maybe they've got a trick, but it's pace, isn't it? It's legs that will get them past people, and I don't feel like it actually still had a decent turn of pace. I mean, there are clips that show that, but he was never going to beat anybody with that pace. It was all dropping his shoulder and step overs and shifting his weight sort of almost imperceptibly, but that the defender's trying to read it, so he reads it wrong. Beautiful. What a gorgeous footballer to watch. Okay, do you want to hit us with another from your list, Luke?
Matchday memory number 2. I'm wondering if this one makes your list as well, because it does involve you, Rich. My second memory is again pig related, as it involves Rich and I's trip to the Stane to watch the Wednesday 2-2 under Megson.
Yeah.
I remember the sheer anxiety and weird feeling of milling around the lane, and probably only the second time I've seen a game there, with the exception of being taken by a friend and his dad when I was a wee bairn. I'm so happy that we had a favourable result, and it probably tasted just so much sweeter to deny them, as they seemed to make themselves out as some third-tier Galacticos who were too good for the division, with Stephen Jude Quinn swinging his dirty ginger beard around, and Chedwin Michael Evans somehow being transformed to third-tier striking royalty, despite him being a bad-touch duffer for his previous realm. I distinctly remember the Granny Oiker, who I couldn't work out what was more disgusting, her sheer lack of class at her age to stick the rods up, or her crusty, malnourished claws offered as rods. So, as history tells us, they went 2-0 up, and the biggest triumph of note of this Megson Wednesday team, who had somehow managed to grow 3 spines from none had at all. Just the beastliest Pokemon mutated third-tier Phoenix that came from the ashes to really shove it up the piggy's pooper. But Medine and Cogber, the chief Wednesday strike force shitwaffs to really awaken the Wednesdayites, and it could have well been free with that momentum. Ruining their party and make Danny Wilson do a Mrs. Doubtfire offended face was sheer deliciousness. It's not netball, it's a contact sport. Awesome.
Oh, it's beautiful writing. Oh.
Thank you.
That's a big memory, I think, on 2 fronts for me, because I think it was, well, maybe more than 2 fronts, but on a personal level, I think we'd had because I think I came and stayed over with you, so because it was an early kickoff. Is that right? Am I right in remembering that?
I think that was the case, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that 12 and we tried to go Get Into the Greek beforehand?
We bought tickets for the next day and tried to get some poor people out of their seats. No. These are our seats, love. You need to up it. That we had them for the next day. Excellent. So all these things, yeah, it was a lovely. We had a lovely evening beforehand and a nervy morning of, and it's grim, our away end. I suppose our away end's fairly grim as well, but I do remember it feeling pretty bleak there.
Being beneath a set of fans is crap.
Yes,
is really, really crap. It's the worst. And there's a lot of historical talk and being on forums, and you don't know.
Yeah,
I kind of led to believe because of my affliction and my nailing my colours to Sheffield Wednesday's mask, that I kind of know I genuinely find the pigs very scummy, so I kind of believe the stories of people throwing bottles of piss onto Wednesdayites. It doesn't surprise me. It feels like, unfortunately, I think even for probably some of the worst of Wednesday fans, if we were given the situation, I think there'd be a bunch of Wednesdayites who would do the same.
I'm sure people are awful.
Sure. There's some shitty people on.
We just
everywhere.
Talked about how people like Conor McGregor and like Harry Redknapp, but people are terrible. So...
But I think with Conor McGregor, there's a fair thing of being entertained and showing up for the party, but also being a bit kind of disgusted with what's happening. Well, that's my expression and that's my feelings. But anyway, that's something else. Let's not talk about that.
No, fair enough.
It's a bit rough as an away end, isn't it? Let's be honest.
But I just remember being so low, obviously, with the start of the game and going behind, and that made the high of pulling it back just so incredible, and I think it sort of strengthened my belief in that Wednesday team. Just to sort of say, we can. They've got almost bottomless. I mean, yeah. So I just wanted to pull it up. So, so they scored the 11th minute, 20th minute. We scored in the 82nd and 86th. So, but I don't remember losing hope. I just remember the second half just being piles and piles of pressure. and just eventually we got them, and it was, it just made me whatever belief I had in the team before, which I think was considerable, makes them really get buy-in from the fans as well as the players. It sort of strengthened threefold, because it's like we were staring down the barrel of pretty much as bad as it gets, and when you're 2-0 down after 20 minutes against your closest rivals, you do start to think that this could be embarrassing. And having stared that down and come back, you just sort of thought, this is a special team. This team's got something about it. So it was really nice to have that shown to us. And I do remember a very, very drunk man in front of us that kind of decided to try and walk over the top of the chairs when we scored the equaliser. And I was very surprised he didn't die. I was really pleased for him for not falling really badly.
You really didn't want to see something like that happen in front of you.
It would have really taken the edge off.
Take the edge off, yeah.
2-2 was good, but when that guy broke his neck, that really was a bit of a buzzkill.
Oh, we had some, and the sheer joy of away end random hugs with randos is always fun.
Hugs with randos. Early morning disgusting, or early in the day disgusting fart smells, and then hugs with randos. The away end. Okay. So my second one, and just to fall into the trap predicted by Chris previously, I've got to talk about the 2005 playoff final. I've got to do it.
Oh, you're so predictable, Rich.
Oh,
come here. You pick best memories of Wednesday's latter-day history.
What a boring git. But I love that. I love that Sturrock team. I think that I talked about sort of my initial passion being ignited by the Waddle game and that team, but my passion was reignited by that team that initially was put together by Chris Turner. And in my hopeful moments, I know we're not talking about the current situation, but in my hopeful moments, I can see some parallels with the recruitment that Chris Turner did and our current situation. But it was a huge rebuild. We'd sloughed off so many of the big earners. I think the last of them had sort of gone. I was a fan of Sibon, but I know he was a huge drain on the resources of the club, and maybe didn't quite live up to his ginormous wage. But all that had sort of gone, and it was a chance to rebuild. And Turner, by and large, was rebuilding with these young, hungry players that had been released by good academies, but obviously not quite made the grade. I think Chris Brunt was behind Downing and somebody else, I think. So it was fairly understandable that he couldn't get a look in at Middlesbrough, but he obviously was a hell of a player, despite the fact that he wasn't in their first team plans or their second team plans. So, yeah, buying into this ethos, this new image of the club, Turner just couldn't work it. He was not a good manager, unfortunately. Seems to have been a good scout for talent, but not a good manager. Sturrock came in and added this strength and resolve to this young team, and it was wholly unexpected to get to the playoff final. I remember I was working for the Welsh Development Agency at the time, and the Welsh Development Agency had a box on the centre circle of the Millennium Stadium, and we managed to, the bit of the agency that I worked for, managed to get that box for the League One playoff final. And at that time, it was not a thought that Sheffield Wednesday would be the team that would be playing that day. But exciting enough. But obviously, as time rolled by and it started to look more and more probable, the practicalities of that were sort of difficult. My sister Suzanne, who I've talked about several times on the podcast, she'd been bitten by the bug as well that season, and really bought into this. She sort of got interested in football without my influence. She just sort of took it up on herself. I think partly inspired by a very attractive Arsenal team. If you remember, Arsenal had Freddie Lundberg, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, some really top-level, handsome chaps there. Hunkarama for a little while in that Arsenal team. And I think that sort of was the opening of the door.
Mm-hmm.
But then she became she became a proper, I think it was slightly probably a physical attraction led. But then she became a proper fan, and obviously it was easier to see Wednesday than it was to see Arsenal. So I managed to coax her over, and I don't know whether she's ever forgiven me, but I managed to coax her over to the Wednesday side of things. And it helped, obviously, we were having this tremendous winning season. So we're faced with the predicament that I was actually working the day of the playoff final. Suze wanted to go. They were selling tickets. The internet was not quite the powerhouse it is today, or certainly not in football ticketing terms. So people were queuing around the block to buy tickets for the Wednesday end, and we had more fans. It was the most fans of any one team to go to any of the football finals at the Millennium Stadium, I believe, at the time at least. So Wednesday sold out their end, no problem. Hartlepool on the other side of things could not sell their tickets for love nor money, and were flogging them online. I think at one point they were even doing 2 for 1, just to try and get some presence in the stadium. So it ended up that Suze and my friend Johnny went and watched in the Hartlepool end, and I was watching in the box in a suit, pretending that I didn't care, but that really fell apart as the game progressed, because it was a very, very stressful and emotionally moving game, and by the end it really had any air of professionalism had left my body, and I was just shouting and screaming like every other fan in the ground. But a glorious day. I mean, just a beautiful day. Cardiff is a fantastic city, and the stadium is right in the heart of it as well. So unlike Wembley, where it's miles from anything, everybody's milling around the city. Everybody was wearing blue and white because Hartlepool wear blue and white as well. Just a great day and a tremendous result, an unbelievable performance, really. And then even getting stuck in the traffic on the way home and playing Hi Ho Silver Lining really loud from my Punto speakers and having people clap along. Just every bit of the day was glorious. So there you go. I know it was during the Luke sabbatical, so I'm sorry you can't add your own elements there.
I know, but it's still nice to kind of hear about the stories and hear about that day for a lot of people and how it panned out. So
we also missed the team. The team went to a service station, and I think we missed them by one service station. But
guessing.
Yeah. But yeah, the team were out in the traffic jam, sort of dancing with the cup and stuff. It's the best traffic jam ever. Next up for Luke.
The final trilogy of these Wednesday match memories has to be the final day of the 2011-2012 season at home to Wycombe. A bumper sellout crowd, a kind, lowly and humble Wycombe kindly retiring to the cheese wedge, so he got to enjoy 4 sides of the ground electric with Wednesdayites. I remember the battalion of inflatables, and still we wonder where they all went, including Rich's very sweet ninja one, which disappeared very quickly, and the monumental Hi-Ho Silver Lining. It seemed to feel fully... It did go really quickly. We commented on that, didn't we? It kind of just went... You threw it not very far. It went straight in front of us by about 6 feet. And since... It just disappeared into the sea of Wednesdayites, really.
Yeah.
It just sunk like a anvil. It seemed to feel fully like a party, despite the question as to what would happen. I still tell anyone who would ever be clueless enough to let them give me 5 minutes of their time to the moment Wednesday went full Spinal Tap in that game. Nicky Antonio's deft touch over the Wycombe keeper sent everyone to 10. But when the iconic Wednesday scoreboard of old gave a cheeky shh-tee to see the Piggies go 1-0 down to the mighty Exeter, then the electric atmosphere went up to 11. Pure magic. the pitch inflation, the pitch invasion, the flares, Miguel Liera floating atop Wednesdayites like he was getting a cheeky dinghy with a few whales on the River Don. Sweet, drizzly liquid euphoria.
Do you know, I've just looked up my receipt, just out of interest. I wondered if I could find it. So Monday, the 30th of April, 2012, my order from Super Fun Stuff on eBay. I had an 18-inch giant inflatable blow-up green frog and a 24-inch purple ninja. So there we go. I had two frogs. They were
good. Also, that was also my now 15-year-old nephew's first Wednesday game.
Oh my goodness!
You know, I remember looking over to give a wave to Andy, my dad, and Samuel, kind of totting up the steps near the end to be like, we're just going to head out and beat the traffic because this is going to be insane. I was like, fair enough. And also, you know, my nephew is basically four pushing 5 at the time. So yeah, and you know, probably a big experience, a fun experience.
Yeah.
But maybe could be a little bit overwhelming for little Samuel
for little
at the time. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine. The weird thing I remember about that day is I didn't ever really doubt that we'd win. And I'm a very pessimistic person when it comes to Wednesday. My general rule of thumb is to set my expectations as low as they can possibly be, and then I will either be pleasantly surprised or right. And I just didn't think we'd lose. I don't know why. It's exactly the sort of thing we would do. You know, fight our way to the top of Everest and then stab ourselves with our own climbing gear. You know, that's exactly the sort of thing Wednesday does.
It did just feel like it was just a question of when, though, really.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great memory, and I have to say, almost sort of tied hand in hand with it is Antonio's last-minute effort against, beyond the last-minute effort against Carlisle United to put the blocks in place as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of my sort of honourable mention type moments, I have to say.
I remember going to that game, and then I have through my mum's family, I've got relatives out in Cumbria, so my cousin Ian came down with I can't remember, a relative of his who's a young kid, and we bonded over how mint Ben Marshall was.
Oh yeah.
But they came down for the
day. Gary
Medine? It didn't come up, I don't think. I think it was just like, he did play for us as well. I think it was a bit like that.
Oh.
So and he was there like, you know, this is big for us. You guys can come do it another time, but this is the only chance for us. Kind of sorry. Sorry, we ruined the party. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I said I was going to do chronological order, and then I've broken that already. So sorry about that. But this is just again to mention Sue's once more. I think a big moment for me in terms of getting to know and love that historic Wednesday team, and a big moment in her being converted. We went along to Wrexham is one of our local games. Wrexham is several times we've visited Wrexham, the racecourse, to help them rally and stay in the Football League, which was a long time ago now, because they've been a long time down in the dusty stuff, and hopefully now with their big Hollywood owners,
the big Mac and
Deadpool.
Mac and Deadpool combo. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe the glory days are on their way back to Wrexham. But yeah, so I think this was probably kind of a high point for Wrexham being in League One, strangely, and it making me feel very old. Darren Ferguson was in the midfield for them, which seems unbelievable now. But basically, yeah. So we went to the Wrexham game in the home end. We were sat in their nicest stand, fairly far apart from other people, so we could have our own mutterings, although we didn't go as far as be as quite as coarse as celebrating. But Wednesday won 3-0, and it's really rather fun to get your Schadenfreude quite so fresh from the source. Being in the home end as an away team, just thoroughly mincing your opposition is really quite a treat. And if you can sit on your hands, I would recommend it to anyone. As a delicious little experience. But McLean scored first. Chris Brunt scored an amazing free kick, and Adam Proudlock, who I did really used to like, a bit of a divisive figure at the time, or in the near future from there. Adam Proudlock rounded things off. So just, yeah, I mean, probably not the most amazing game of football, but a good team, a good performance, scoring at the right time. Brunt's goal was very sort of pivotal as to when it came, and just very enjoyable being in the home end and having your team win away. So yeah, that's my third number. What's up next for you, Luke?
So we finished the trilogy of matchday memories for me.
The Return of the Jedi.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to go a slightly different kind of mentality here. And I think there's a few different Wednesday memories that don't kind of naturally involve things on the pitch for us. I'm interested to see on your list if you have any of these. So if any popular beverage would ever sponsor different gravy, then we'd have to say that Coca-Cola would be the beverage of choice for Rich and I. Firstly, it's a sickly sweet caffeinated drink that has put me clearly massively overweight and kept me going through many a time. Secondly, if it was not for the drink sponsorship of the Football League and the beautiful reward scheme Coke Zone, then Rich and I might have not been reunited in our friendship. You see, Coke Zone was a reward scheme with giveaways for 5 pairs of match day home tickets to every Football League match, and off on the reward account, heavy and chubby, liver and bone impaired Luke and Rich would swing tickets 9 times out of 10 by pumping the old Coke Zone trick to swing some cushy South Stand prizes. So I'm glad to say on a couple of occasions, Rich and I managed to be fortuitously sat next to each other, and fate gave us a seed planted for yet another bloody Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I now have the perfect place to admit my biggest pride and my biggest shame. Yes, listeners, you may or may not be surprised to learn I massively swamped entries for 2 once-in-a-lifetime competitions that you'll probably think should be won by a child and not a 27-year-old man-child. The first of these is one of my finest 5 Wednesday memories I will share today on the 100th podcast episode. The first was a training day with the football club, and Rich and I swam down to Middlewood Road to hang out with the 2010-2011 new season riffraff and Alan Irvin. I have a lot of scattershot memories of that really, really sweet day, and I'll try to recount the best ones here. Luke and Rich discovered that the club has top-class facilities, but does the odd ice bath by filling a wheelie bin with ice cubes. Luke and Rich discovered the attempts of someone at the club to try and defend the reputation of Francis Jeffers were hugely unsuccessful. Darren Potter is really that boring in real life. James O'Connor is a charming diamond in real life, as we imagined. Luke and Rich get possibly the most depressing ever shot of Wednesdayites with Lee Grant before he was flogged. On top of being likable in person, Irvin also had the nous to reject the offer of a Sheffield Wednesday-themed number plate for his Land Rover. Luke managed to somehow hold off on the homoerotic attraction for Tommy Spur by awkwardly touching the small of his back and thankfully not touching his arse during a photo opportunity. And the most embarrassing thing that has happened in Luke's Wednesdayite fandom, and the reason I don't think we should ever talk to a footballer on the podcast after he proclaimed to Clinton Morrison, "I can't wait to watch you bang them in League One," was met with immediate embarrassment to Clint, and then the future embarrassment that Morrison was complete rubbish for the entirety of his Wednesday career. A top day all round, though perfectly succeeded by by the front page news the next day of the Star that the club was in deep financial doo-doo. We have victories as Wednesdayites, but these are never for too long.
Oh dear. I've got to say that is one of my top 5 Wednesday. I mean, this is sort of kid in the can. Being our own insular selves, lots of awkwardness added in. But there's an element of being a kid in the candy shop, just being at middle of the road, seeing everything, and like even getting through our own sort of layers and layers of introvert awkwardness. Meeting pretty much every player was amazing. Just little things, I think, like Lindsay at the club sort of talking us through like the system for fines and things like that. She brought the pay slips, I think, for the week, and she was like, so if they get a yellow card, they do this. If they get a red card. I love all that sort of like that little peek behind the curtain sort of thing, and getting to go into the big sort of inflatable tent pitch and things like that.
Yes.
Oh, just so good. My personal embarrassing moment was for far too long in the lead up to that, I believed that we were actually going to be taking part in the training.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually counter you on that. I don't know. Maybe I was awkward enough to not know how to tell you that, we're not going to be putting on some football socks and trying to get a challenge on Marcus Tudgay or something like this. Or...
Well, I was worried because I do have a left knee made entirely of biscuits, but not like probably something like very, very crumbly, like Viennese or something like that. So I was worrying about how we would hold up. But of course they did not let two giant 20-somethings lumber about with these expensive professional footballers.
Yeah. We just got to watch them. We just got to watch them do some drills and play some games from the side, right?
The thought of it is very, very funny and silly now. But at the time, I don't know why I thought that was something that might... Well, I believed in the power of Coca-Cola. And my own personal sort of... Amongst the pantheon of Coke products, Diet Coke is very much the idol I kneel towards. Coke come 5 p.m. every evening. So, right, where are we up to with these memories right here?
I've just done my 4th. So
You've just done your 4th.
Number 4 for you. Number 8 of the overall 10. And 4th of Richie Miller's special favourite Wednesday memories.
Well, so it's similar to the Pigs game in a way. But Tranmere away during that season was a real treat. On a personal level, I think we had a very enjoyable time in the town of Tranmere. I can't quite remember where. I think we ate in the little like Greasy Spoon Cafe.
I think we did, yes. Yes, good memory.
Which felt very civilized. Do
you remember when we went to Rochdale away, and we thought it'll be really nice because Rich and I we like to think of ourselves as kind of fooders. But I think we just like really nice burgers, don't we, Rich?
Yes, we do.
So we tried to find a place in Rochdale to go to.
Oh yeah.
We couldn't do it because of the EDL rally that was in Rochdale on that day.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I do remember.
Oh, visiting small Lancashire towns. Well, traveller, you may have to combat with an EDL rally.
Yeah. If you can make it past the EDL rallies, you have quite a lovely time in Rochdale.
We went down to Burnley and stayed the previous weekend, as we knew the EDL rally would provide some difficult sort of...
Oh dear. You can save on the heating because the fires at the EDL rally will keep you toasty warm all weekend long. Is that Maplewood? No, it's hate. But yeah, Tranmere away. Most of these are, I mean, all of these are victories pretty much, apart from the draw with United. So this was another one, a come from behind. The illustrious Jose Baxter scoring the initial goal for Tranmere Rovers and sending their fans into raptures. We had the fun of Ryan Lowe has some sort of checkered history with the people of Tranmere. I think because he's local vaguely, and he was getting absolute pelters as he warmed up and really, really enjoying it. Doing such a sort of deep stretch of his groin right in front of the Tranmere fans that it couldn't be anything but a sort of mick take. That it couldn't have been serving any physiological purpose, certainly not a good one. But yeah, again, sort of coming from behind, Chris Lyons scoring just as we went to half time, and then Ryan Lowe himself, having got all of that hate, nodding in from a Chris Lyons delivery at a corner as well. Just a real treat and a really nice. I mean, it was a nice day. Enjoying the day out, and then also enjoying the football that went along with it. I have to say, with our friend the Rona, an away day is something I am hankering very, very, very strongly after.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned, the farts, the hugs, maybe winning.
Maybe winning. Maybe not being embarrassed.
Yeah. Number 5, Luke.
Number 5.
Unless you've got anything to share on Tranmere, but yeah, I'm presuming.
That was lovely. Did you? I maybe zoned out a little bit while I was getting my kind of thoughts together, so I do apologise.
Okay.
Did you talk about Ryan Lowe?
I did talk about Ryan Lowe and his deep stretches of his groin right in front of the Tranmere fans who were losing their minds.
Fantastic.
I think he weirdly, in this kind of dog-eat-dog world of football, I think he actually eventually did actually play some games for Tranmere at some point, but they hated him. I think he played for almost every other local club.
He did seem to flit around in that kind of Merseyside, that Merseyside area, didn't he? Really?
Yeah. And now he's a manager at large.
Are you a lower league Merseyside club? Why not sign Ryan Lowe?
Yes, I mean Chester. So he's at Chester twice. He's also at Crewe and Stockport and Bury. So I think Chester must be. I think there's a bit of rivalry, Chester and Tranmere. I think there's a bit of needle there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where he will have built up those wells of hate. But yeah, he did go on to 2013, 2014. He did actually end up playing for Tranmere Rovers and got a good scoring record. 45 played and 19 scored.
He was very much the man, wasn't he? For lower league goals, was Ryan Lowe.
He knows his way around a lower league net.
Yeah, I mean he hits the pitch. Next thing you know, we got low. Did get the whole pitch looking at him when he bagged that Tranmere.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all looking at him even before he hit the pitch, but once he hit the pitch, he really showed them.
Exactly.
He gave them some.
Mm.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Final memory.
Final memory from Luke.
So the final Sheffield Wednesday memory for me, again, is probably linked to the last one I shared. And, you may not be surprised to learn that there was another great Wednesday competition, which I also abused heavily and disappointed everyone involved with not being a small, wide-eyed boy, but a young man at the age where I probably should know better.
Still quite wide-eyed.
That actually led an employee of Wednesday who took us round and who I think even had a hand in looking after us for the first thing to proclaim to me that I must have some luck with these competitions, to which I nervously laughed. This allowed me, and to be accompanied by a friend, and who else would I pick but the excellent Richie Miller, to flip the coin before a Wednesday match. And the best news that this was the next season, so I had the great honour of flipping the coin between Wednesday and the now defunct Bury Football Club for Dave Jones's first match of his meteoric rise to promotion. I'd like to say that the 6th of March 2012 has been forever etched into my memory, but I did have to Google it. Rich arrived and we dined on a savagely lovely 3-course meal. Then I was taken out into the centre circle of pitch and got to mildly duff up the hallowed turf in my finest pair of brogues, and had the great joy of turning my head to see Samido doing his cool and weird jumping crouch style warm-up. I still recall very much that memory from this and a fair degree of fanboyness. I was a little starstruck. I then did the weakest coin flip in front of the ref, Rob Jones, and Bury captain Stephen Schumacher. Luckily, we won the flip from my toss of a large plastic coin, and so it wasn't a complete disaster. Rich and I then went back to our swanky South Stand seats and watched Mickey and Antonio have an absolute stormer whilst Dave Jones wore his very questionable glasses.
Those glasses were... There was a couple of things with Dave Jones early doors. Knowing that his reputation precedes him.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first game. He did that thing where he was appointed, but he wasn't in charge for the first game.
Yes.
And I remember him saying on the radio that he'd watch the first half and see if he needed to go down and give them a little tickle at half time.
Yes.
And then those glasses, those kind of like not shades but slightly shady glasses.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot how good a game that was.
Yeah, we absolutely creamed them 4-1, didn't we?
It was an absolute spanking, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And because they battered us, hadn't they beaten us 5-1 at their place?
I don't think Bury did they?
I
think they beat us. I think they beat us by 2 or 3-0 or something. That was Ryan Lowe, wasn't it? That's kind of...
Is that Ryan Lowe?
I think Ryan Lowe scored a free kick against us. I think he might have got a brace against us. Yeah.
Was it Mike Jones was their winger?
Mike Jones, the winger, who we signed and then did nothing for us.
Did nothing for us, but I seem to... Sorry, apologies for that noise, but let me see. Sorry about this, folks. But...
Can I just finish off while you...
Yes, please do. Sorry.
Okay. The only sad element to this is the fact that I was promised a photo of me flipping the coin that Steve Ellis would have taken, and it never arrived.
Oh, no.
At one point, I contacted the gentleman, Chris, at the club, and he promised that Steve was looking for it but couldn't find the memory stick it was on. A fact that was corroborated by my eldest brother Andy, that in his words, I imagine Steve Ellis has more memory sticks than you've had hot dinners. By the decency of Chris, and I must kind of attribute this, he did offer for me to come back and do that toss again as a way of apology, but I'd since moved to Calgary, and I think he moved on since. I did try to contact the club to no great effect, and I hilariously only once received some announcement of some company winning some element of a catering contract to the club. Oh well.
Wow. A little tinge of sadness at the end there. It was just 2-1, you're right, but I think it was just unexpected for us to have gone there and got beat, because we were Megson's mighty men. So my memory of that is so strange. I don't know almost like I was in a daze the whole time. Obviously, we didn't actually do the coin toss together, but I went onto the pitch and stood next to some, dignitaries or whatever, whilst you did the toss. And I thought you did a really fine job. I've always said you're a tosser, and I think you really...
Always tell anyone you're a massive tosser.
Yeah, tell you what, my mate Luke, he's a...
I feel like me and you are going towards towards what is it,
my mother-in-law. No.
Oh no, who's the guy who interviewed the Bee Gees?
Oh,
Anderson.
Yes. Clive Anderson.
Clive Anderson, who said very similar things about them. And then that kind of curtailed the interview. But I'm going to stick around despite the fact you called me a massive tosser.
I'm glad. But yeah, it was sort of... It's a very dreamlike thing of wandering onto the pitch. I found the whole thing very overwhelming. I remember feeling that Gary Medine looked far away, even though he was quite close to me. That's something that really stuck in my mind for some stupid reason. But I think I was just very worried about like where I was supposed to be standing and not getting in the way of things, not accidentally injuring any of the players.
Mm.
Oh, so Mike Jones played for us so he'd starred in the previous game for them and then played for us in the return. I'm putting things together here.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember we signed him and he was supposed to be a promising winger, and then I think he played against Charlton. That was his debut. It was a home game against Charlton, but did we draw 1-1?
I think I remember him looking all right in the game against Bury, but that being it, basically. That was sort of the high point, the high watermark of a pretty nothingy time at the club. So I'm torn because for my final one, I think I've spoken in recent episodes and this episode about the playoff semi-final with Brighton. So I don't want to go over that again necessarily. And I also talked about Wembley and the singing after the game. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm going to go for my last one. It's going to be another away day. It's weird. There's a lot of away days here. It's going to be Birmingham away. And this would be on the 6th of February, 2016. A real masterclass from Gary Hooper. Another come from behind victory. Another sort of fairly good day all told, but absolutely bucketing down. I remember being very worried during the game and even sending you a picture, Luke, of like the roller that they were trying to use to try and desperately suck up some bits of moisture from the pitch because it was sodden. And in parts of the pitch, the ball was really holding up. So that even to the point once we went behind at half time, just before half time. That was sort of a bit of a Tom Lees error, but Clayton Donaldson scored for them, and then the whole of the second half was just us laying siege to their goal, and eventually getting two really, really classy goals from Gary Hooper in the 77th and the 79th minute. But even after that, in the 80th minute, I feel like the rain came on again, and we were worrying about they might actually call this off. Even this late in the day, they might call this off because it was so heavy. But again, it was just lovely football. Bannon was heavily involved in Hooper's goal from outside the box was just gorgeous, and lovely play from Bannon to make it happen, and just a tremendous thundering finish from Hooper. And as we talked about, sort of memories getting layered up and added to over the years, the vivid that we've all seen the photo of so Birmingham City, they have this weird thing where there are boxes in the away end. I don't know why you would ever do that, but out of some desperation to claw in some extra revenue, they've got corporate boxes in the away end. So everybody's seen the picture of the Birmingham City fan who was giving it laldy at half time when they were 1-0 up. And then his face of sheer horror, his jowly face of sheer horror as Hooper not only equalised, but then scored the winner. Was just added to the charm of things. So now looking back, I remember seeing him on the day, but I don't know if I was that close to that window. I remember being aware of those windows and what a weird decision it was to have those boxes in the away end, and people, banging on the glass as they do. We've talked, people are awful. We touched on this. There's glass, they're going to bang it. So I remember being aware of that. I don't remember if I saw the guy particularly, but it was such a brilliant face he pulled when they went behind, and tremendous atmosphere, singing the Gary Hooper song, which is one of the very best songs of recent years, and one you'll approve of, Luke, as a big mode head. Is that what you call yourselves?
We always call ourselves that. Yeah, we were just having the annual Modehead convention just the other day.
Joe DePesce's.
Yes, that too as well. I mean,
how am I gothic? How am I 80s gothic? Oh dear, sorry. So did you? You would have been following from afar, I guess, on that day.
I was, yeah. I don't because it was that weird. It was also a really annoying season just before
Oh,
because it was
before
just
the
so
blanket
beautiful
coverage.
and so incredible, and there was no coverage on iFollow. It was the next season,
Uh,
which was the Carlos hangover season,
mm,
and then that kind of was like just in true kind of obvious Wednesday and iFollow fashion, just led with a defeat away at Preston, which felt like a pre-season game, and they didn't have any commentary, so it was just the audio of the crowd.
oh,
But I had to mute it because it was out of sync.
our balls.
It was just so bad.
Yeah.
Like you need to. I understand that things have an infancy and they need to grow, but it
Yes.
was just awful and just such a poor Wednesday performance on top of that. Like really excited for the beginning of the season, like anybody is, and it was just such a bad performance away at Preston.
Oh yeah.
Such a limp dicked nothing performance.
The other thing with that Birmingham game is it's one of the many Westwood coming off early or coming off before kickoff. So in the 18th minute, Westwood was injured and Lewis Price came in for him. Lewis Price hadn't done anything. He hadn't even played in the cup for us. So we were really dreading it. Lewis Price. So that also adds to it, doesn't it? When you sort of like your expectations have been lowered so much. And Hutch went off injured in the 22nd minute. So yeah, I think he'd been playing centre back as well. So just all these like we've got no chance. X, Y, and Z has happened, and then we turned it all around. Got to be said, also another game turned around when good old Atty Nuiu came on for Aidan McGeady. Oh, still miss you, Atty. So that's our memories.
That's them. What's were there any near misses, Rich?
Well, I sort of burned through most of mine, I think, in the end, with one thing or another. So I think I've mentioned all of my. I had 8 sort of put aside, and I think I've mentioned all 8 now. How about you?
How do we? The really interesting thing was kind of looking back, and thank you to everyone who contributed. Thank you. I was just thinking about Paul's Paul's email from before, and the thing that like even some of the worst times kind of have very striking memories for us.
Yeah,
and then in a weird way they kind of take a like I'm sure that's like that's Paul's memory, but it's also Paul's memory of sharing with his dad, right?
Yeah.
So because I was thinking about some of the other Wednesday memories, which are kind of fun and kind of striking, but they're not good ones.
Yeah.
I think about what was the in a kind of like looked like we were going to go out of business, and then there was a protest about what was going on at the club or what was not going on at the club, and Howard Wilkinson coming out under the south stand.
Yes, yeah, reading his little statement.
Yeah, and then the fan who classically asked about why does Gary Teal have a 2-seater Bentley?
Yes.
Which I think 2-seater Bentley is still kind of a word in the Wednesday fan lexicon.
It is definitely, isn't it?
It is. It is. So, like, even sometimes some of the bad times are still kind of oddly fondly remembered. Thankfully, though.
I think, I can see that, and I think also now because we've had this season where there's been calls for fan action, and there's many reasons why I think that hasn't happened. Not least Panny D. But I do remember, going along to sack the board protests. I remember the hype around the black balloon protest. I don't really remember it particularly, but I remember the hype and some of the backlash. But those moments where they do end up being historic in one way or another, they do stick with you. And I think feeling that you could change, you did change, or you were part of a change, is quite a thing.
I don't know, I also wonder about the time that like I participated in a bucket collection for Sid,
Oh yeah,
the Wednesday who had a very bad time away at Hartlepool.
yeah.
And that kind of feels oddly powerful for me because it just makes me think that like a little bit teary here. If something like that happened to any one of us, I think there'd probably be a support from
Yeah,
the Wednesday family.
yeah.
And also that was the League Cup. No, it was the JPT win over Chesterfield, and it was the Nicky Weaver penalty heroics.
Oh, the yeah. There's something special about a goalkeeper scoring from a penalty. Still remember Pressman against Wolves.
I do like to think that former probably Wednesdayite turncoat Harry Maguire probably knew how to lever that penalty in the final penalty defeat against Italy, thanks to probably seeing Kevin Pressman levering a penalty.
Probably. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that's how the in terms of the wider Wednesday family football fraternity sort of thing. Those moments are moving and stick with you as well.
I will say, I'll try and end this on a slight positive because it's got to take a bit sad turn.
Good.
I would say one thing that didn't make the cut, but now I've mentioned this before. It was one of my favorite Wednesday goals. But being away with you at Oldham when we saw Prutton's.
Oh yes,
Prutton's balletic piece of exquisite finishing. That was something huge for me.
Yeah, gorgeous kung fu style goal. Good old Prutton. No, that's a good memory as well.
It was a good memory, and we did have some great celebrations with randos as part of that, which is just fantastic.
Oh, those days will be back. We'll celebrate with randos again. It'll happen. Hey, we'll celebrate something again. Surely that will happen at some point.
Hopefully, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, different. I mean, I think it wouldn't be different gravy without a sort of weirdly sad ending. We wouldn't be true to the podcast we've been for 100 episodes now if we didn't have a weird twist in the end. So thank you so much for people who have taken the time to listen as we've gone through. Thank you for people who've made kind comments and left reviews on iTunes. It's been bizarrely coincidental how often Luke and I have been having a wobble or a moan, and then something nice comes through and really gives us a boost and shows us we've been being silly beggars about things. And so thank you so much for people who've done that. You sort of helped more than you possibly could know at times, so thank you so much for that. And also thank you for people that have maybe listen to the podcast and hate the podcast for not telling us, because we wouldn't react well to it. So thank you for that. Thank you for keeping your thoughts to you. And finally, just thank you, Luke. I always feel better after we talk things through, even on the darkest of days for Wednesday. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. And here's to some more of this waffly nonsense.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rich. It's a weird angle that I think me and you have, that it's this kind of, I think we'd always be friends, but I think it's probably bolstered our friendship a lot more to kind of be in contact when people are moving to different countries and living their lives on the other side of the world and stuff. So yeah, thank you, sir.
Cheerio, folks.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.